December 19th, 1927. A prison in Faizabad and a trial that had gripped the entire nation was finally reaching its end. The British called it the Kakori conspiracy case, a name designed to make it sound small, criminal, manageable. What it actually was a reckoning. 16 men were brought to trial. Young men, students, poets, dreamers who had picked up guns because they believed their country was worth dying for. The prosecution had one goal: to make an example so terrifying that no Indian would ever dare again. Ashfaqulla Khan entered that courtroom the same way he would later enter the gallows room, without hurry, without fear. He looked at the British judge the way a man looks at weather, something to be endured, not obeyed. Ram Prasad Bismil turned the courtroom into a stage. He spoke without notes, without hesitation. A man who had already decided the verdict didn't matter. What mattered was who was watching, and all of India was watching. The trial stretched across more than a year. Petitions were filed, Congress leaders appealed, poets wrote elegies for men still breathing. The case had become something the British hadn't intended, a mirror held up to the face of empire. Indian lawyers fought brilliantly. They argued procedure, evidence, intent. But everyone in that courtroom understood the uncomfortable truth. The verdict had been written before the first witness was called. On the 6th of April, 1927, the judge spoke the words that would echo through history: death for Ram Prasad Bismil, death for Rajendra Lahiri, death for Roshan Singh, and death for Ashfaqulla Khan. The courtroom broke open. People wept, people shouted, lawyers stood frozen, and in the dock, 4 young men sat still, as if the sentence had been passed on someone else entirely. Look at him. Look carefully. This is a 26-year-old man who has just been told he will die. And he is the calmest person in the room. The British were not satisfied with the death sentence. They wanted something more. They wanted names, hideouts. The underground network of the Hindustan Republican Association that Chandra Shekhar Azad was still running somewhere out there in the darkness. And they believed Ashfaqulla Khan could give it to them. A senior British official visited Ashfaqulla Khan in his cell at Faizabad. The offer was simple: cooperate, name your comrades, tell us where they are hiding, and we will spare your life. Ashfaqulla Khan listened to the entire offer. He did not interrupt. He did not argue. When the officer finished speaking, Ashfaq was quiet for a long moment, and then he said no. They came back a second time. The offer had grown. Not just his life, money for his family, safety, a new identity, everything a man could want, except the one thing Ashfaqulla Khan actually wanted: a free India. While they negotiated, he wrote Urdu verse on whatever paper he could find. He had made his decision long before they came to him. He was simply waiting for them to understand it. They came a third time. This time, the officer was less polite. The tone had shifted from offer to warning. Tell us, or hang. Ashfaqulla Khan looked at the man across from him and, by all accounts, smiled. After the third refusal, the British finally understood. This was not a man who could be bought. This was not a man who could be frightened. This was something far more dangerous. A man who had already made peace with dying. Someone asked him, "Why won't you betray Bismil? He is a Hindu. You are a Muslim. What does he owe you? What do you owe him?" Ashfaqulla Khan's answer has survived the century. He is my brother. I do not betray my brother to save my skin. What kind of freedom would that be? Ram Prasad Bismil never knew. In those final months, As both men sat in separate prisons waiting for the same rope, Bismil never knew what Ashfaqulla Khan had silently refused on his behalf. Some loyalties are so deep, they don't need to be announced. In the weeks before his execution, Ashfaqulla Khan did something that tells you everything you need to know about who he was. He wrote poetry, not letters of appeal, not confessions, not desperate bargaining. Poetry. His pen name was Hasrat. It means longing, and his final poems are drenched in it, not for his own life, but for the India he would never live to see. An India where a man could pray in a mosque or a temple and still call himself the same thing. Indian, he wrote, यह जिंदगी भी एक सजा है मुझे, मौत भी एक इनाम लगती है, वतन के नाम पे जो सर कटा दिया, उसकी कुर्बानी तमाम लगती है. This life too feels like punishment to me. Even death feels like a reward. The head laid down in the name of the homeland. That sacrifice feels complete. He wrote to his mother. He told her not to grieve. He told her that what he was doing was not dying. It was arriving somewhere. That the freedom of India was a destination worth the journey, no matter how it ended. His mother, Majarunissa, received his last letter 3 days before he was hanged. She read it alone. She did not show it to anyone for many years. When she finally did, a nation wept. He began a letter to Ram Prasad Bismil. He didn't finish it. Perhaps he knew there were no words large enough for what he wanted to say. Perhaps some things between brothers don't need to be written. They simply are. When they cleared his cell after the execution, this is what they found. Pages, covered in Urdu verse. An empire had tried to silence a poet. Instead, it had given him the quietest, most permanent stage in history. The written word, December 19th, 1927. It was a cold morning, the kind of grey, still winter dawn that northern India does in December. The kind of morning where the world seems to be holding its breath. Inside Faizabad district jail, Ashfaqulla Khan was 27 years old. He had been in this prison for over a year. Today was his last day on earth. The guards had been briefed carefully. They had been warned he might resist. He might have to be carried. They were prepared for struggle, for screaming, for the desperate animal panic that seizes men at the end. They were not prepared for what actually happened. At Fajr, the pre-dawn prayer, Ashfaqulla Khan spread his prayer mat on the stone floor of his cell. He prayed with complete stillness, no trembling, no distraction, a man in total conversation with his God. On the morning of his death, when the cell door opened, Ashfaqulla Khan was already standing. He had not waited to be told to rise. He picked up nothing. He left everything. And he walked out of that cell as if he had somewhere important to be. The guards remember it. They have always remembered it. He walked faster than they did. Down the stone corridor, toward the gallows room, Ashfaqulla Khan walked as if he were late for something he had been looking forward to. And then he saw the rope. He walked to it. He reached out with his bound hands, and he kissed it. Not as a broken man kisses the boot of his captor. Not in defeat. He kissed it the way a pilgrim kisses a holy stone, with reverence, with gratitude, with the complete peace of a man who knows exactly who he is and what he is doing. The British guards in that room had never seen anything like it. Some of them never forgot it. His last words were a poem, recited clearly into the cold stone air of the gallows room in Urdu, a language the British officers present did not understand, but they felt it, the sound of a man speaking his own name into eternity. At 6 o'clock in the morning, On the 19th of December, 1927, Ashfaqulla Khan was hanged. He was 27 years old. The empire thought it had won. Empires always think they've won, right up until they haven't. By nightfall on December 19th, all of India knew. The grief was real, and it was enormous. But beneath the grief, something harder, something that would take another 20 years to fully ignite. But that was already burning now, quietly, in the chest of every Indian who heard his name. A young revolutionary named Bhagat Singh read the news. He had met Ashfaqulla Khan once. He remembered him. In the years that followed, Bhagat Singh would walk a path that Ashfaqulla Khan had helped build, and he would walk it to the same end, with the same impossible calm. The torch passes. That is what martyrs are for. Chandra Shekhar Azad, the man who had never been caught, received the news in hiding. He carried it in silence. He continued, because that is what Ashfaq would have wanted. 20 years later, August 15th, 1947, the flag that Ashfaqulla Khan had given his life for rose over a free India for the first time. He was not there to see it, but his name was spoken that day by people who knew that freedom is never free. It is always purchased by someone at a price that cannot be refunded. In the town where he was born, his name is on streets, on schools, on the walls of government buildings. The boy who left on foot, carrying nothing but a notebook and an impossible dream, came back as something that lasts longer than any empire. A name that children learn. At his memorial, Hindus and Muslims come together. They always have. Because Ashfaqulla Khan and Ram Prasad Bismil proved something with their lives and their deaths that no politician has ever been able to disprove. That the dream of a free India was never owned by any one faith. It belonged to everyone who loved it enough to suffer for it. We began here, a prison corridor, a young man walking toward the gallows, calm, unhurried, almost smiling. Now you know why. He kissed the rope because he was not afraid of it. He kissed the rope because it was, in the logic of his life, the next right thing to do. He kissed the rope because Ram Prasad Bismil was already gone, and the last act of friendship he could offer his brother was to follow him without flinching. His name was Ashfaqulla Khan. He was a poet who became a revolutionary, a Muslim who died beside a Hindu, a young man who chose his country over his life, a son who told his mother not to grieve, and in the end, a man who kissed the rope that killed him, because he had decided, long before that morning, that some things are worth dying for, and a free India was one of them. Shahidon ki chitaon par lagenge, har baras mile, watan par marne walon ka yahi baki nishan hoga. Every year, there will be gatherings at the shrines of martyrs. This is the only mark that remains of those who died for their homeland.